Blitz!
I'm Travis Downey, this is Adam Rosenberg, and this is the Northwest Florida Daily News' Prep Football Blitz postseason edition, Navarre edition, if you will. The Raiders being the lone team standing from our local grouping of schools. Navarre getting ready for a big road game at Gene Cox Stadium in Tallahassee with Tallahassee-Lincoln, a regional final. These two teams haven't met before. They have some common opponents, but just looking at the tail of the tape, if you will, with Navarre and Lincoln, how do you see this one? Who do you think has the advantage?
Well, first off, if we at the beginning of the season said, who do you think would be our last local team left, where do you think we would have had Navarre on the list?
Yeah, I don't think they would have been.
I mean, they would have been way down there. So hats off to them for making us look bad, for not knowing, to kind of believe in them earlier.
Sure.
But the one thing basically that we can look at. I saw Lincoln play this season. They played Niceville. I guess it was that first game of the year, wasn't it?
Yeah, early on.
Which seems like ages ago. It was months ago.
Right.
But that was a game that after the game, we found out that Lincoln was without a few big time players and they still gave Niceville a pretty big test on the road.
Right.
Now they get to play at home against a good Navarre team that beat Niceville. So it should be interesting to see, what the addition of those players. I know you wrote in your story that they got a big safety back and a linebacker and a receiver, I think.
Several players.
Yeah, so I mean, all these big guys that when you think about, take away some of those key guys from Navarre's team, how would their season have gone? And Lincoln still managed to go 8-4, and they've still managed to get this far.
Yep.
And as you also noted, they tend to pick up steam and play their best football at this time of year. So. It should be an interesting game.
Yeah, it's interesting. You get to this point of the year, you've got Lincoln that's won 8 straight, I believe. No, 5 straight. Navarre has won 8 straight. So, it's that point of the year. You've got 2 teams playing their best ball. Something's got to give. And Friday night, it will. I'm going to go with Navarre. Looking at how they won last week at Pine Forest, I mean, the defense was strong. They had some turnovers they had to overcome offensively. But with Colton Kane in that offense, Chris Stapleton has a fumble recovery, his team trailing by 4. Has that fumble recovery. They pick up on the 10 with 2.5 minutes left. And Colton Kane was just, as hot and cold as he had been earlier in the night, it was like a clean slate with him. 5 of his final 6. A big pass to Brad Leggett for the game winner. Joel Boschman had 9 catches, 134 yards. They've got balance. They've really found some balance. I like Navarre. It's going to be a close game, and I think being a close game plays in Navarre's favor, actually. But I like Navarre to go on the road and get this win.
I agree. I picked against Navarre last week, but the way they withstood that test on the road in kind of nasty weather against a Pine Forest team that most people expected to win, just like a lot of teams have been expected to win against Navarre this year. I think the way they proved to themselves that they could go on the road in the highest pressure environment imaginable. They're facing an even higher pressure environment against a very tradition-laden Lincoln team. This is a team that's been there before, and they've been there recently. But I think Navarre has just shown that they're kind of that team of destiny. I wouldn't be surprised if the ball bounces their way in some way, or if they just make some key play down the stretch that kind of turns the tide. Like you said, close game, but I'm going with Navarre.
And we mentioned, the team of destiny and whatnot. With Navarre, the thing that strikes me is they're going on the road again. But this group, and speaking with head coach Chad Lashley and a lot of their players, it's a really heady group, really mature group. And I think that final drive at Pine Forest, both offensively and defensively, really kind of shed some light on just what those guys are talking about.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you see it sometimes. It's even now you hear about it in like the NFL, how big it is to get home field advantage throughout the playoffs, and it is a big deal. But then you see a team like the Giants a few years ago had to win every game on the road in the playoffs, and they went and win the Super Bowl. And, like you said, this is a Navarre team that was not on anyone's radar. If they lose this, tonight, no one will hold it against them. So they kind of have that nothing to lose thing going on.
And one more thing about this home and away thing with Lincoln. We mentioned how they were here before. Last year, regional final at home against Niceville, and they lost. And that's one thing Yusuf Shakir, the head coach there, he was quick to point that out. Home field, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and like you said, even though they're at full strength, this is a team that lost to Niceville earlier in the season. Navarre beat Niceville, so if you want to use the transitive property of beating teams there, you can go with that. But like you said, should be a good game. I'm kind of jealous you get to go out and watch it.
Should be a good one.
But thanks for tuning in. We'll see if we have any teams left next week to talk about. We'll see if Navarre can survive, and we'll see you next week. Maybe.